It's David Wowee here. How you doing? Xianhua, Xianhua, Xianhua? Here is the best Xianhua guide you can find. Here's how to upgrade her, how to use her skills effectively, the best team setups, Grasta, and how to get her dealing around 50 billion damage. Like and subscribe if you want good luck in your next banner pull, and if you're feeling juicy, become a super member. I also have Discord, baby. Xianhua is a genius mummy from KMS who was introduced in Another Eden's 7th anniversary episode, A Paradise of Imperfections. She's a non-element magic staff user who's an incredible damage dealer, and guess what? A decent support. But you have to make sure to set her up right. Before I get into her skills, here's how to upgrade her. If you only have a 4.5 star and want to bump her up to a 5 star, you need one Tei Genren memoir, which you have a random chance of getting from Industrial Ruins. Give that, along with the usual cocktail of scripts to the morbidly obese and bad-breathed old racist lady at Times Forgotten Stop to upgrade her to a 5 star. To make the most of Xianhua, you'd want to Stellar Awaken her, and you can do this by pulling her in her character banner, or pulling her in another banner 2 more times, or by using 3 star charts. Check my Stellar Awakening guide for more info on this. Why should you Stellar Awaken Xianhua? Let's check out her skills, and if you think you know them already, think again. If you've watched my other character guides, I usually like my characters to just focus on 2 to 3 skills. Firstly, to make things easier, and secondly, because most people's characters will only have 3 skill slots. But so many of Xianhua's skills are pretty good and can be used in different applications. Let's have a look. First, let's look at her passives. Xianhua performs better the more intelligence and MP she has. Her intelligence actually increases based on the average intelligence of your frontline team, so she works best with a magic team because they typically have the highest intelligence. If you have her Stellar Awakened, you can also start the battle with a buff that, if enhanced, gives all staff party members mental focus for 3 turns. Mental focus increases a character's damage based on their MP, so the more MP you give Xianhua, the stronger she'll be for the first 3 turns. During this 3 turns, all staff party members equipped damage will increase by 50%. So if you want to completely wipe an enemy out during another force for the first 3 moves, this Stellar Awakened passive skill of Xianhua's can do the trick for you. Xianhua also has a couple of other Stellar Awakened passive skills, like the typical Stellar Burst activation bonus. During Stellar Burst, if you have a majority shadow team, all party members get plus 30% magic crit rate. And another stellar passive skill is, if you have 2 or more KMS party members on the front line, your stellar burst gauge fill rate increases. Yakumo is a fellow KMS staff user who will help you with this. So to summarize, here are Xianhua's passives. Her intelligence increases based on the average intelligence of your team, so if you want to deal more damage, have more staff members. If you've activated and upgraded these stellar skills, all staff equipped characters get mental focus and damage increases by 50% for 3 turns. If you have majority shadow, magic crit rate of your team increases by 30%. If you have 2 or more KMS members, stellar burst rate increases. In plain English, have more staff and luring shadow point type users in your team to make the most of Xianhua. Now let's look at my favorite skills of hers. Right off the bat, 2 of her super interesting skills will remind veteran players of Mana. Remember her? First, let's look at Xianhua's skill, Hacking. This skill is a support skill that if, for some reason, you decide to use Xianhua more of a support character rather than a magic dealer. It's designed for a mainly physical damage-based team fighting a magic-based enemy. Why? Because what it does is, it reduces both enemies and allies' intelligence and physical resistance by 50%, while at the same time, increasing everyone's power and magic resistance by 50%. In plain English, this makes magic users and enemies weaker, and physical strength users and enemies stronger. This is bad for Xianhua as intelligence makes her stronger, so you'd only use it if you want to make physical attackers in your team stronger, or if you're fighting a boss that at some point in the battle becomes a magic attacker and you want to reduce its magic attack. Xianhua's next skill, Breakdown, is the complete opposite of this. It's designed to improve a magic-based team fighting a physical damage dealing enemy. So this is perfect if you want to make full use of Xianhua's skill set as a magic user who improves when she's with other magic users. It does this by reducing the power and magic resistance of the enemies and teammates by 50% and increasing the intelligence and physical resistance of everyone by 50%. In plain English, it makes physical strength users and enemies weaker and magic users and enemies stronger. This skill can be very useful if you have a majority staff magic team and you're fighting enemies who do physical damage. This will weaken them while making you stronger. Both these skills can be useful if you want your Xianhua to be a support character or if you're missing a good support character. Because you're limited to 3 skill slots, lately I actually haven't been using these skills often and instead given the buff debuff jobs to my support characters instead. More on this soon. But before we put these 2 skills away in the shelf, there's also a huge reason why you may want to keep at least one of them, and it's to do with Xianhua's stellar skill. I'll show you why later in this vid. The next skill is Link, which is Xianhua's zone setting ability, but it does more than just set magic fate stance. It increases her max MP and restores her MP. On top of that, remember mental focus? It's that buff that increases her attack power based on MP. Link gives mental focus on Xianhua for 3 turns, so this MP boost plus mental focus makes her super duper strong. If you use Link again, it will then awaken Magic Fate Stance while doubling your MP for 2 turns, making her even stronger than she already was. This is perfect when in another force. Use Link once to activate Magic Fate Stance, use it again to awaken that stance, double your MP and greatly increase your damage because of mental focus. What's even more amazing is that unlike other characters who can only awaken a zone within one battle, Xianhua can awaken Magic Fate Stance as many times as you want, so you can keep topping up these super buffs of hers. If you have no idea what Awakening Zone means, check out my zones guide after watching this video. On another note, Xianhua can also activate Magic Fate Stance as part of her Valor Chant, but this skill, Link, is more effective as it gives you those buffs. The next skill is Trinity. It increases Xianhua's non-type magic by 50%, and here's a cool one, it increases skill hit count by 1 for 3 turns. What a skill hit increase does is exactly that. It increases the amount of hits you do in a turn. This is perfect for overpowered characters like Xianhua who reach the 2 billion damage cap per hit pretty quickly. This skill hit increase will help her deal potentially over 2 billion more damage on top of that. Next is my favorite skill of Xianhua's, which is Horizon, which can in some instances do much more damage than her stellar skill. Horizon deals 2 XL magic attacks that have an 8 times damage multiplier and ignores your target's defenses, which is really useful for a lot of bosses that now have barrier. Remember how I said increasing intelligence is important? The higher Xianhua's intelligence is, the higher the damage of this skill will be, as you can see by this fancy formula. And if the current enemy's HP is above 50%, Xianhua, the Ruthless Mummy, will do the same attack again at no cost, and it will count as a separate move, so unlike other characters with multi-hit moves, this second attack will contribute to the Another Force bar. How good is this skill, my friends? And if you use Trinity beforehand to get that extra attack, guess what? She do 3 of these crazy attacks. Horizon is Xianhua's best 5-star move, so if you don't have a Stellar Awakened Xianhua, I would personally use Link, Trinity and Horizon as my top 3 skills. You'd be unstoppable for a huge portion of this game. And if you want to experiment with support, you can swap some of these skills with Hacking and Breakdown. Things get even more interesting when you've Stellar Awakened Xianhua and unlocked and upgraded her stellar skill, Tesseract. By itself, it deals a decent 5 times double XL magic attack on all enemies. And what's fun about this is that it works hand in hand with Xianhua's Horizon skill. Horizon increases in strength if the enemy's health is above 50%, but Tesseract increases in strength if the enemy's health is below or equal to 50%. So you can use Horizon to weaken the enemy and then Tesseract to finish them off. Tesseract is perfect to use against enemies with 50% HP stoppers because you blast them as soon as you reach that stopper. But that's not all. Tesseract becomes super interesting once you use it as a stellar burst skill. After you use it, certain buffs the enemies have are completely inverted for 3 turns. What the heck does this mean? Remember the support skills hacking and breakdown. Let's say you use breakdown, which increases both your team's and enemies' intelligence by 50%. And let's say having an enemy with increased intelligence doesn't sit right with you. Tesseract, when used as a stellar burst, will inverse that 50% buff and instead make that enemy lose 50%, while at the same time you still benefit from the 50% boost. And this doesn't just work with the buffs Xianhua put on the enemy, it also reverses a number of buffs the enemy has. Which buffs exactly? They don't say. If you do know, let us know in the comments. On top of this, Xianhua will inflict exposed on the enemy, which means if they're not already weak to non-element magic attacks, they will be. But remember, exposed doesn't override null or absorb, and it's only available for the current turn. So what I do is, I activate my stellar burst at the start of the turn, and if the enemy is still alive, I'll use Xianhua's other regular skills against it, now that it's weak against her non-element magic attacks. Which skills do I like the most? I use the following 3 skills in this order when I use my Xianhua. If appropriate, I'd start with Another Force. Then I'd use Link to activate Magic Fate stance and get the buffs. Then I'd use another character to awaken the stance, more in team setup soon. Then I'd use Horizon to severely harm my enemies. Then I'd finish them off with Tesseract. If they're still miraculously alive after Another Force, or if they had an HP stopper, I'd use Tesseract again to finish them off, which if you're lucky would be available as a stellar burst. When it comes to weapons and equipment, use whatever you can to increase Xianhua's intelligence and MP. Choose the most appropriate weapons and armor to where you are at the game, making sure to pick the ones that increase intelligence and MP. I've included a link to the unofficial wiki list in my description that you can browse to find the most suitable equipment to where you are in the game. In terms of endgame weapons, my personal choices are the Elpis Rod if you want the overthrow ability, or the Dryad Staff, which increases Xianhua's magic critical strength. The speed bonus is also good with the Dryad Staff, as it lets her do more damage in Another Force. If you manage to upgrade it, the Aseto Vita has an intelligence buff, and for an earlier weapon, an upgraded Star-Made Staff gives you a huge int bonus. You get this from the Apocrypha series. When it comes to armor, the Dreamer Ring is looking good as it increases all stats by 20 plus increases your MP by 50. This is fantastic, but it is quite a journey to get this. I personally have the Dryad's Ring, which I purchased at Entrana Another Dungeon. This gives its wearer an MP boost depending on their light or shadow points and increases their physical and magical critical damage. Now how about Grasta? If you want to use Xianhua as more of a support unit, you could try the Boost Proficiency Grasta. This improves her buffs. I personally use Xianhua as a damage dealer, so I use the standard Pain Grasta I usually use for my damage dealers. Then I upgrade that Grasta with the usual high damage ores such as the Rose with Thorned Ore, Bullseye Ore, and Last Stand Ore. If your Xianhua has a lot of luring shadow points, you could also consider upgrading your Pain Grasta with Light, Shadow Intelligence Plus ores, which gives her an intelligence boost. Then you could equip your support allies and allies in the reserves with shareable Grasta such as Enhansive Max HP Staff, Power Void Staff, and Almighty Power, Synth Human, Eastern, or KMS Grasta. Now let's look at the team setup I used to beat a bunch of bosses and achieve 55 billion damage with my damage tests. As we talked about in her skills, Xianhua is best with fellow staff and shade users and anyone who can increase her intelligence. The team I used to quickly beat the latest and arguably the most difficult of Sebastia's trials of those embracing emptiness extreme, and the same team I used to get her dealing over 49 billion damage during my damage test is this one. First up, for support and healer is Claude Extra Style. I know he's not a staff or shade user, but hear me out. If you watch my guide, you'll see that he has a skill called Empathy that, although he's initially a sword user, completely changes his attack and support type to staff if you use Empathy on Xianhua. Yes, I know his intelligence won't be as high as other staff users, but he compensates for it with his extraordinary buffs, which helped my Xianhua get to that 49 billion damage mark. For example, Claude ES's skill Madness Eris after Empathy will increase Xianhua's weapon damage by 50% and critical damage by 100%. You can see my damage test at the end of this video. An alternative to Claude ES who I've seen people online use is Flamelopus, another style, who is a staff user and has some good magic support skills. I just found the fact that she's a water element a bit too much of a mix up with my Xianhua, and unfortunately during my damage test with Flam AS, I was only able to deal a measly 39 billion damage instead of 49 billion damage. Another option is to increase your attack, so in another test I used Yakumo instead of Claude ES. In my damage test with Yakumo, I got my team dealing 55 billion damage, baby. If you want a free character, you can use Colette as a support, healer, and decent damage dealer. She's also a staff non-element character, so she vibes well with Xianhua. With my free time, I was able to deal over 4 billion damage, which isn't bad for a free team. The next character is Mune for Alta. What haven't I said about her? She's a fantastic staff support character, and it's her buff skills that contribute most to Xianhua's multi-billion damage. She also has some various shielding abilities and can even awaken your Magic Fate stats. If you want a free option, you can also consider Nona Another Style, who has some really good support skills that are similar to Mune for Altars, except just a little bit not as good because she's free. And lastly, we have Iffy. Besides the fact that she synergizes well with Xianhua because she's a luring shadow staff user with high intelligence, Iffy is super useful if a team member gets knocked out as she brings them back again. Her Rosa Liliac is pain and poison setting and can also massively debuff the enemy. Besides Rosa Liliac, I have her increasing the power, speed, and most especially intelligence of all team members for 3 turns and knockback immunity for 1 turn, which is super important for a number of bosses. In my free team, I had Garyu as another staff dealing luring shadow point damage dealer whose true manifest version can also increase the team's intelligence by a decent 50% levels. This guy is fantastic. Watch the end of this video for my damage tests. The final question is, should you get Xianhua? Is she worth it? Of course she's worth it, man. Even if she isn't still awakened, her skill set looks like she can still be a pretty decent 5-star, especially with her buffs and her insane Horizon skill that bypasses your target's defenses. But if you do get her Stellar Awakened and enhance her Tesseract skill, your Xianhua will be an unstoppable force. Use the skills and team setups are recommended and you are going to be very, very happy. You're going to have a happy ending. What do you think of her?
Feast. Die. Gone.
You're fired! You're fired! Die! Die! You're done!
Enlightenment is the key to unwavering truth.
Now you face a king!
Go away! Die.
Kneel!
Go. Be gone. Die. Go away! Pathetic. Go away! Take that! Go away! Go away! Die.
O dragon, answer now for your transgressions as I summon the darkness that brought down the sun. Come to me and cast away your foolish impressions. Now, Hyperion, our deliverance has begun.
Enlightenment is the key to unwavering truth. Feast. Go away! Die. Go.
Kneel!
Die.